afternoon, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining the Food Safety Educational Conference as part of the 2021 virtual Southeast Regional Fruit and Vegetable Conference. My name's Anita McMullen, and I'm the Division Director for the Food and Drug Protection Division of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And I'll be your moderator today for this particular session. I'd like to start out with thanking Highland Ag Solutions for sponsoring the 2021 Food Safety Educational Conference. Let's start by watching a short video provided by Highland Ag Solutions. Reggie, can you go ahead and start that video?
Highland is virtualizing the business of agriculture. From soil to sale, we are uniting growers, packers, marketers, and their customers in ways never done before. In today's global marketplace, competition has never been fiercer. You need innovative tools to provide business and market transparency for the industry to remain sustainable for future generations.
Wonderful. Thank you for running that for us, Reggie. So before we get started with our presentation today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the pesticide CEUs and CCA credits that are available to you. So pesticide CEU and CCA credits are available for most presentations offered during the live Southeast Regional Conference. Check the pesticide CEU guide for a list of approved presentations, and a list of participating states and number of credits. The Pesticide CEU Guide is located on the Event Resources tab under the Media Player. The guide is also available at the Resources Center, located on the main menu of the conference platform. Please note that pesticide credits will only be available for 1, registered attendees, and 2, only during the live conference. Credits will not be available for on-demand viewing. So it's very important information if you're looking for CEUs. So a little bit more on the CEU process. There's a simple 3-step process to receive pesticide CEU and CCA credits. Number 1, first, go to the audience chat box located on the left side of your screen and type your first name, last name, and the states for which you're requesting credits. Again, that's the audience chat box on the left side of your screen. Type your first name, last name, and the states for which you're requesting credits. Remember, you're going to have to do this for every live presentation to request your CEU credits. The second step is to make sure that you sign out at the end of every presentation. To sign out, go to the audience chat box, type in your first name, last name, and the states for which you're requesting credits. You will be reminded to sign out at the end of the presentation. The third step is to complete the pesticide CEU registration. You only have to complete this registration one time during the conference. It is not required for every presentation. To access the pesticide CEU registration web link, open the Pesticide CEU Guide on the Event Resources tab located under the Media Player. The Pesticide CEU registration web link is located on the front cover of the guide. All right, next slide. This presentation is not pre-recorded, it's actually live. We will be answering your questions though at the end of the presentation in a live format. To submit a question, you can do that at any time during the presentation. Just type your question in the questions box and press send. The questions box is down at the bottom of your screen. Let's don't forget to thank our 2021 conference sponsors and exhibitors, and you can do this by visiting the virtual trade show and the featured products pavilion. A couple of more announcements. Lastly, don't forget to attend the morning coffee chat, but I think this is the last day, so I don't think there's any more coffee chats. But each evening you can join the evening reception. There is one tonight beginning at 5 p.m. and check your conference agenda for more details. All right, so now I'd like to introduce Chris Harris, our Produce Safety Program. Let me go back to this. Oh, all right, already went up to, it's the slides, great. Now I'd like to introduce Chris Harris, our Produce Safety Program Manager with the Food and Drug Protection Division of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. In our session today, Chris will be presenting on the North Carolina perspective on produce safety rule inspections. Chris has been with the Food and Drug Protection Division since 1996 and serves as the Produce Safety Manager. In this role, Chris manages the development and implementation of the division's produce safety program, including outreach, education, and inspection activities. Chris manages our OnFarm Readiness Review program in collaboration with North Carolina State University Cooperative Extension Program. He directs staff training and administers the activities of our inspection program. Prior to serving in this role, Chris was a supervisor and inspected in the division's manufactured food program, conducting and overseeing inspections of food facilities, warehouses, and retail operations across the state. Today, Chris is going to speak on the North Carolina perspective on produce safety inspections. And this is such an important topic and so timely. And we're really glad he's here with us today to share that information. Our U.S. agriculture provides us with such a safe, wholesome, and abundant food supply. And we're very fortunate to have the safest food supply in the world, quite honestly. But in 2011, the Food Safety Modernization Act was signed into law, and that made our existing food safety program even
All right, I have lost audio with our moderator today. Reggie, are you able to hear me? Okay, I believe we've lost our moderator, and I'm going to switch over to the slides presentation and go ahead and start here. It appears that everyone can hear me all right. My name is Chris Harris. I'm with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. I'm the Produce Safety Program Manager. I'd like to thank everyone for being here this afternoon, and I'd like to thank everyone for allowing me to talk about North Carolina's perspective on implementing produce safety rule inspections today. We have built up our produce safety team here in North Carolina. We've got 3 inspectors, we have outreach coordinator, and we have a compliance officer. And we are in the process of doing inspections. We've been doing inspections for over a year, up until the COVID-19 situation hit. North Carolina has adopted the produce safety rule back in May of 2018. North Carolina adopted the produce safety rule just as it was written. We didn't make any alterations to it. It's been adopted into the North Carolina Administrative Code. And prior to that, when I started a few years ago with the produce safety program, North Carolina was in full swing with outreach and education efforts to help the growers and stakeholders here in North Carolina prepare for inspections. And we've done that through a variety of different platforms. We have some collaborative partners with NC State Extension. We've got a fresh produce safety task force here in North Carolina that's been very active in helping the growers in North Carolina prepare for the produce safety rule and prepare for FSMA. The fresh produce safety task force is made up of various different academia, academies of very random different academia organizations across the state. Farm Bureau is part of that. Carolina Farm Stewardship is part of that. There's some growers that are a part of that, and various different departments within the Department of Agriculture that make up the Fresh Produce Safety Task Force. We've also collaborated with FDA. We've collaborated with some of our neighboring states to try to do everything we can to identify different avenues to try to reach growers and prepare them for the produce safety rule through outreach and education. So before I start talking about inspections, I really need to touch base and just say an on-farm readiness review is probably the most important thing that a grower could do and participate in prior to having an inspection. An on-farm readiness review is a free, confidential, non-regulatory visit that a member of our program, the Produce Safety Program, and a member of NC State Extension, there would be 2 of us on an on-farm readiness review. Once a grower has completed the Produce Safety Alliance Growers Training, they can request a on-farm readiness review, and there's no cost for this. And this really does help a grower establish a relationship with our department, as well as establish a kind of an idea of how we're going to, prepare ourselves for inspections and prepare the growers for inspections. It's very specific to that farm. It takes a few hours. We walk through and try to help identify areas that are in need of potential improvement in a non-regulatory capacity. And we can touch base a little bit more on-farm readiness reviews as we get through the presentation. In North Carolina and across the United States, I know that everyone is in the mindset of educate before and while we regulate. We stand behind that here in North Carolina. We have been trying to find all different avenues we can to reach growers and help them determine if they're going to be covered by the produce safety rule, if they are going to have a qualified exemption or some other type of exemption, or if they're going to be covered by the produce safety rule, and help them in any way we can to prepare for an on-farm readiness review or to prepare for an inspection, and answer all the questions that are centered around the produce safety rule. We have been working on our policy and procedures. We have been collaborating with NASDA and other national organizations in other states to have a uniform and consistent method for conducting inspections. We have all attended standardized training, and anyone across the country that's going to do inspections has attended standardized training. We've all worked with NASDA. We have really been focusing on trying to prepare ourselves for the implementation of the produce safety rule in a uniform and consistent manner. Preparing for an inspection, our staff has attended some of the FDA training courses that are required for conducting on-farm readiness reviews, or for conducting inspections or in conducting investigations. So today, this is the meat and potatoes about why I'm here, and what I'm here to talk about is what to expect of a regulatory inspection. We're going to cover scheduling the inspection, the day of the inspection, the initial interview that we have with the grower, walkthrough of the farm, and the exit interview. All right, so scheduling an inspection, we've kind of got it broken down into two sections. There's really announced inspections and unannounced inspections. We would prefer to have announced inspections, scheduled inspections. We are in the process of reaching out to growers to try to help them determine if they are covered by the produce safety rule. And if they are covered, we're trying to provide the resources that they might need to prepare for an inspection. And when the time comes for an inspection, we're reaching out to the growers to schedule that inspection on a day that's convenient for them, and a day that the owner could be there or the food safety manager could be present. Our ultimate goal is to have scheduled inspections. There are some opportunities where we might have unannounced inspections. Maybe the phone number that we have is no longer valid, or the email that we have is no longer valid. We're just not able to reach anyone, or we've had a complaint or a situation where we have to go out there immediately and try to speak with the grower. But the ultimate goal here in North Carolina is to have 100% announced inspections if possible. When we make those calls to schedule an inspection, we call that the pre-inspectional call. We talk with the growers or the food safety manager or the person in charge of the farm manager, and we want to confirm the commodities that they grow are covered commodities. We want to confirm that the activities that take place on the farm are covered activities, and determine if they have an exemption or not. And we want to just clarify all that prior to setting up the inspection. We are going to provide our information in case something comes up in that 5-day period or whenever it's determined that we're going to do that inspection, so they have a way to reach us and they understand exactly who's going to be there on their farm. We want to discuss any biosecurity practices that the farm might have in place that we need to follow, and ask a few questions. Maybe they have chickens on the farm, maybe they have cows on the farm. We want to be respectful and prepare ourselves prior to getting there. That's one of the advantages of having a scheduled inspection, is we can take into account the farm policies that are in place so that we can follow those. And that's our ultimate goal, is to try to prepare for any policies the farm has for visitors, or any biosecurity practices that the farm might have in place. On the day of the inspection, we're going to introduce ourselves as the very first thing. We have state credentials that we're going to provide the most pertinent person at the farm, whether it be the owner or the food safety manager or whoever's in charge. We're going to present them with our credentials. We are going to issue what we call a notice of inspection. That's basically a document that we complete and provide a copy to management or to the owner. And usually that is the most responsible individual that is there at the time. While we schedule these inspections, we always want to make sure someone's going to be there that can take us around the farm, that knows all the aspects of the farm, whether it be the owner or the food safety manager or the farm manager. So during the initial interview, we want to give a good description of the inspection. We want to talk about the farm activities that are taking place during that day and the scope of the inspection. So if we arrive early in the morning, but harvest isn't until, say, after the sun has burned off some of the dew off of the plants, then we would probably cover some areas that were not part of harvest prior to that. And we're going to try to gather as much information as we can so that we can see as many of the covered activities that are taking place on that farm during our visit. And that would all include the growing, packing, harvesting, and holding of covered commodities. We want to remain flexible to work with the grower's schedule. Sometimes we could show up and there might be, something that's broken down or an unexpected activity is taking place. We're very flexible as we schedule these inspections and as we conduct these initial interviews. We're gathering information about the farm's organizational structure. Is it a farm that's all under one name, or is there multiple entities? Is it a mixed type facility? So we're trying to gather as much information as we can to determine how things will go during that inspection. And as we walk through the farm, we are going to want to see as much of the operation as we can: growing, harvesting, packing, and holding. And sometimes growers might have multiple commodities that they are harvesting that day, and the harvesting practices could be completely different. Some items could be packed in the field, some items could be packed in a pack house. We're going to try to see as much of that as possible. We are going to coordinate with the grower so that we're not interfering with his daily activities, but we want to observe as much of those covered activities as possible. These inspectors are going to take notes. We're going to write down some information for ourselves, as well as probably some discussion points for the end of the inspection. As we go through these inspections, as we walk through the farm, we're not only going to have conversation about activities or things that we see or practices that maybe could be improved upon. We're also going to highlight anything that we see that a grower is exceeding and doing well and being very proactive in the implementation of the produce safety rule or within controlling a risk on the farm. These are educational farm visits that are designed not just to try to identify areas of improvement, but we also want to recognize when a grower is being proactive and being a leader in the community and practicing a food safety culture. This is all about educating before and while you regulate. The exit interview is going to be primarily with the most, I should say, the owner of the farm or the farm manager or whoever they've left in charge, to meet with us that day. We don't want to have any surprises. So as we do that walkthrough, we're always talking about areas that could be improved upon right then. We're not going to hold off until the end, until the exit interview, so there's not going to be any surprises. We're going to talk about those areas that might need some improvement and discuss some corrective actions that might take place during the time period between that inspection and maybe the next inspection, depending on what those corrective actions might be. We're going to provide a form called the inspection form, or the 4056, and we will issue that paperwork to the grower or to the person that they've left in charge to work with us. Any type of resources or any type of technical assistance that we can provide for a grower that might help them out in an area or answer any questions, we're going to provide that as well. The exit interview is basically the closing of the inspection. Once we issue that paperwork, the inspection is officially closed. So as we've been doing the inspections here in North Carolina, there's some lessons that we've learned from inspections. Some areas that some of our growers could improve upon, and in cleaning and sanitation is probably one of our biggest areas that we can improve upon. And I think that really comes down to understanding the difference between cleaning and sanitation. There's two separate steps there. So that's one of the things that we've tried to focus on and help our growers as we go out and do these inspections. Another is worker training and harvest practices. One of the things that we've noticed is that there is training in place, but it may not be duty-specific training. And we've been trying to highlight that, and we talk with growers on that and focus on that. Another area is documentation or record keeping of trainings, or just in general documentation of practices that have taken place that are required under some of the records that are required under the produce safety rule. We have encountered some growers that are also under a GAP program. And while they're keeping records for gaps, and that's not an issue as we implement the produce safety rule, there could be areas where some additional detail might be needed, or some additional understanding might be needed to really get a grasp on what took place while that record was being kept. So we mentioned earlier about policy and procedures. There's been a lot of changes and a lot of setbacks as a result of COVID-19. While it has not changed the compliance dates for conducting inspections, we start 2021 with the ability to do very small farm inspections, and that's our ultimate goal, is to start very small farm inspections, as well as continue small farm inspections and large farm inspections. There are some policy and procedures on the state level, as well as I know many of the farms across the United States have new policy and procedures related to COVID. We want to be very respectful to those, follow the farm's policy and procedures, as well as following the state's policy and procedures for visiting a farm during this time of COVID. That has been a big setback. We've been working with our growers here in North Carolina. If they've had significant outbreaks, which are currently active when we're contacting them to do an inspection, then we might postpone that inspection. We would put that off. We don't want to obviously put ourselves in a situation where we might be a burden on the farm when they have maybe a reduced workforce. But we are not visiting farms that have active cases in reduced workforces. So we're being very flexible during this time. So where do we go from here? I think the most important thing a grower can do, if they have not been through an inspection, if they have not been to the Produce Safety Alliance Growers Training course, is to sign up for the Produce Safety Alliance Growers Training course. And here in North Carolina, we are partnered with NC State Extension. They are providing the Produce Safety Alliance Growers Training for anyone here in North Carolina that is growing covered commodities, regardless of the size, regardless if you have a type of exemption. We offer that to everyone. That is a prerequisite for a on-farm readiness review, and we are still offering on-farm readiness reviews here in North Carolina to any size farm, regardless if you're covered or not covered. As long as you're handling covered commodities, we are open to conducting an on-farm readiness review if you've taken the PSA growers training. The on-farm readiness reviews are conducted with NC State Extension. It's a member of NC State Extension and a member of the Produce Safety Program here in North Carolina. And the conversations go so much better once a grower has attended the PSA growers training prior to having an on-farm readiness review. That's a very important part. The other option is where do we go from here is to contact your state's produce safety program. Here in North Carolina, my information is there as well as NC State's information, but I would encourage any grower that hasn't spoken to their produce safety program partners for their state to reach out to them to find out more information about the produce safety rule, if they are offering on-farm readiness reviews, to find out more information about the Produce Safety Alliance growers training. One of the things in North Carolina to be on the lookout for is some new education and outreach opportunities. We've taken some of the areas that we've noted during on-farm readiness reviews and during inspections, and we've tried to work through NC State Extension in collaboration with NC State Extension, and as well as collaboration with FDA and some of our other stakeholders, and develop trainings. And we're in the process of developing more trainings. And one of our big partners here in North Carolina are the research stations. North Carolina has 18 research stations across the state, and we have a couple of pack lines on these research stations. And we are partnering with NC State Extension as well as the research stations and FDA, and we have already conducted a few trainings on things like cleaning and sanitizing, sanitary design of equipment, but we have a lot more opportunities coming in the future to try to provide a platform that's an educational platform for the growers here in North Carolina as well as across the nation to expand their knowledge on some of these areas that we have noted during on-farm readiness reviews or during inspections that might need some additional attention. So I look forward to 2021 to where we can implement some of these new trainings to continue with educate before and while we regulate. That's just really probably the most important message that I can provide today is we are a resource. We are also the entity that is doing the inspections, but we are a resource. We want to help. We want to promote food safety culture, and we want to promote the growing and harvesting, packing, and holding of produce across North Carolina as well as across the United States. I have put my contact information up here, and I know earlier, I believe I had we lost touch with you, Anita, but I think you're back now. And I wanted to just open it up to any questions that we might have, and I did, unless I missed something earlier, Anita, when my audio went out.
No, absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much. So we are able to answer your questions. To submit a question for Chris, please type your question into the questions box down at the bottom of your screen. And again, just a reminder, if you are seeking pesticide CEU and CCA credits, please make sure you sign out via the audience chat box, your first name and last name, and states for which you are seeking credits. So while we wait for some of these questions to come up, Chris, I have a couple. We're going to start with one on inspections, on your inspectional approach. And the question that I have is, how do you decide which commodity to cover during an inspection? Many of our growers are doing multiple commodities at the same time. Does it have to be something that's currently being harvested? And so how do you decide what you're going to inspect when you do a on-farm inspection?
That's a great question, Anita. We have a grower we did an inspection on that actually had 40 different covered commodities that they grow over the course of the 12 months. And while we were there was about a dozen different commodities they were growing at a time that were all covered commodities. So that's one of the discussions we have during the initial the pre-inspection meeting and the call that we have is to try to determine what's in the field, what's going to be harvested while we're there, and when we get there that day, what is going to be harvested, because there are some factors that could play into that. Maybe they had planned to harvest a commodity that requires tractors to be in the field, but then we had a lot of rain and they can't get in there and we have to regroup, and they are not harvesting those. So ultimately, any of those harvest activities that are covered activities under the produce safety rule, we're going to try to see. So if they're doing multiple commodities, if possible, if they all have the same harvest practices, then we'll try to see as many of them as we can. But there are situations where the commodities might have different harvest practices. Some products might be, or some commodities might be field packed, and that's a fairly short activity. Other commodities might be harvested and then trailered and carried to a pack house where they are washed and rinsed, or maybe dried, or even waxed or whatnot. So there's a lot more steps that go into that. So we would want to see as much of the operation as possible with as much of the handling that takes place, so we can see as many of the activities that are taking place on that farm.
Okay, that's great. So when you conduct your inspections, I know one thing that can oftentimes be a concern is how long you're going to be on the farm. So typically, in your experience, how long does an inspection take?
Well, that we do get asked that question a lot, and that's really going to depend on what's taking place on that farm. Assuming everything's going smoothly and it's it's not a gigantic farm. I mean, there's some huge farms across the United States, but I would say that an average inspection takes about 4 hours or so. That's pretty much what we've had here in North Carolina, is anywhere between 3 and 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. If what normally determines that is planning during the pre-call and conversation during the initial meeting to try to set up the day so that we can see as many of those covered activities as possible. But I would say a normal inspection is right around 4 hours to see everything, to have the conversation about everything we need to see. But once again, there's each farm is going to be different. Some farms might not take as long as they are, maybe only 1 acre. But other farms might be thousands of acres. So, and they might have multiple different activities that take place that we would want to see. Anything from how they're handling biological soil amendments all the way to the pack house, to just trying to watch and be a part of the harvest.
Great, thanks for that. I think that's such an important thing, because obviously when inspectors are on the farm, it ties up folks from the farm that need to walk around with you or speak with you. So getting an idea of how long those take, I think is a good thing for folks to know. And kind of building on that, typically in North Carolina in your program, how many folks actually go out on an inspection?
So the way we have it set up here in North Carolina is we're going in pairs of 2. And typically that's going to be more of a senior inspector going with a newer inspector. However, we have 5 people on staff that can do inspections, and our ultimate goal is to have 2 people on inspections as we do these initial inspections. And these initial inspections are educational inspections. So we're trying to limit it to 2, but these initial inspections are educational inspections. And as we progress into the future and we start having routine inspections, the idea is that our inspectors would probably go by themselves. They have been there before with the senior inspector, but ultimately 2 is what we're trying to stick with here in North Carolina.
I think that's always good information to know. Thanks for that. And again, if anyone has any questions, please type them into the gray box down at the bottom of your screen, and we would be glad to get to those questions for you. While we wait for any to pop up, I have another question for you, Chris. So one of your last slides was about, and you spoke a little bit about research stations. So tell us a little bit more about how North Carolina engages and collaborates with the research stations to provide education and outreach, and speak of some of the benefits that provides not only to industry, of course, where this is a really important issue for industry, to provide this education and outreach, but also for your staff, how you use research stations to give your staff an awareness of farming operations, so that you're not doing that actually on an active farm, but on a farm that is a research station farm. And again, how you use that equipment that you had some pictures of, and providing those trainings both to your staff and to both to industry and your staff.
All right, Anita, that's a really good question. We have the 18 research stations here across North Carolina. When we first got started and we started building our program and our collaboration with NC State Extension, that was also helping us with on-farm readiness reviews. As an on-farm readiness review team, we would go to research stations to conduct mock on-farm readiness reviews. That's where we really started. We would go into the field, we would go into the pack house, we would set up scenarios on these research stations to basically sync ourselves up as a team for on-farm readiness reviews. We would go into, say, a pack house, and we would take a few minutes independently and go walk around and look at the equipment and look at the facility and what was taking place in there. And then we'd come back together as a group and have a discussion about what we saw and how it was relevant to the produce safety rule. And from there, we would work through conversation that we would have, if that was actually at a farm with a grower, how we would approach discussing those areas that might need some improvement, or discussing some of those concerns that we had maybe with a piece of equipment and how it was designed and what it was manufactured with, whether it could be cleaned, whether it could be sanitized. And from there, we realized that these research stations have such a benefit as far as being able to have pack line equipment and have commodities in the field, and they have they have wells, they have ponds, they have pump houses, they have all the same equipment that we're going to see on the farms across North Carolina as well as across the United States. So we decided to have these research stations basically set up as like classrooms, with these pack line, with these functionable pack lines. They are set up with equipment that you see in a farm out here in North Carolina. It's not any type of out of the ordinary equipment that you might find on the research station. So we can have hands-on training specific to some of the concerns that we've received, areas of discussion on farm readiness reviews or inspections. Sanitary design of equipment is a big one. cleaning and sanitation of equipment, even all the way down to the types of brushes, the types of utensils you might use on that particular piece of equipment, or the type of chemicals that you might use on that piece of equipment. The research stations provide a platform for us to bring any grower or anyone that wants to be a part of that training, an extension agent, someone from our staff, really anyone in a neutral environment, to provide outreach and education on specific topics that are directly related to conversations we've had with growers or concerns that we've had maybe during an on-farm readiness review or an inspection.
Yeah, I really like the concept of using research stations because it allows you to bring the regulators and the educators and the regulated community, the farming community, together and learn things together. And again, doing it in an environment where we're not doing this on someone's farm, but we're actually doing it in a research station. So we can have a little bit more freer conversations about what we're seeing, what type of activities and opportunities we may be seeing to do something different to increase or improve food safety. So I think that's a really great concept. And hopefully once we get past this current pandemic, we'll be able to bring folks together. I know we're all eager for that. I know I am personally.
Absolutely. We do look forward to 2021. I'm sorry. We look forward to 2021 because we are in the process of working with FDA and working with our collaborative partners to develop some additional trainings based on inspections that we've had in 2020.
Yep, that's a great concept. There was a question that popped up in our question box. Thank you. Saying that they did not see the sign-in box. Not quite sure which sign-in box we're looking for, but I do know for your CEUs and your CCAs, you use the audience chat box, the little green box down at the bottom, to sign in and sign out. Make sure we have your first and last name and the states in which you're going to seek credits for. So, Chris, we're coming towards the end of our session. Oops, papers are flying. And I want to thank you for your presentation today. It was really great. To all of our attendees, I'd really like to thank you for attending our session. Again, please don't forget to sign out to get your pesticide credits in the audience chat box. All of the educational presentations and the virtual trade show will be available for you to access until April 30th, 2021. So if there's something that you missed, you can come back and watch it, or if you saw a presentation that you really enjoyed, you can rewatch it. So it's a great opportunity for you. Or if you need to search for a service or a product provider in our virtual trade show, that also will be available for you. So again, I want to thank everyone for their participation. I want to thank Chris Harris with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture for his presentation today. And with that, make sure you sign out. We're going to go ahead and conclude our presentation today. Again, thank you so much. And please take advantage of signing in and accessing the conference platform up through April 30th, 2021. So I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful rest of the year. Be safe, and we'll see you again. Hopefully not for a virtual conference, but we'll see you in 2022 for the next Southeast Regional Fruit and Vegetable Conference. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.